Blessed be. This is Greg, the pagan bisexual, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Glamor and maybe my feelings on it. This is the year of the fire tiger. The fire tiger is specifically a year where, being my zodiac sign in the Chinese zodiac, um, it helps me to feel a lot more connected with the divine. Um, it is also a year of luck for my sign. I'm a Leo in the common European astrology configuration. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my beliefs with paganism, bisexuality, and sort of my transition from monotheism to polytheism. When I was young, about maybe 12 or 13 years old, I came across some books in the library and they resonated with me. Around that same time, I was introduced to media such as Harry Potter, Merlin, The Sword and the Stone, and the idea of magic and wizardry came over me. And something resonated with my soul. I wanted desperately to explore this path of druidry, of some of the ancient wizards, Merlin, and I felt that because of my monotheistic parents who were very pressure oriented in attending the LDS religion known as Mormonism, and they considered anything in the realm of magic to be contradictory to their beliefs, not understanding magic. So I figured I'd first start out explaining a bit about Magick, as well as making a referral to a YouTuber I really admire named uh, Blazely Dragon. And I think that he is very proficient at going into extreme detail and doing the correct research prior to making a video. So this is more my personal opinions on my path and the progression that I've made. I wouldn't say that I'm pagan per se. I'm more Jeet Kune Do in regards to spirituality and religion. I'm agnostic, similar to an agnostic theist, in the way where wizards look at things. Having trained at the Grey School of Wizardry myself with Oberon Zell Ravenheart, I felt that wizardry is a tool, similar to a gun or similar to a tourniquet or anything that you can use for multiple uses. Magic is something that metaphysical element that permeates all religions. You know, whether or not you are Christian, a pagan act is praying. Whether or not you recognize it as that, whether you are a Buddhist and that chanting and connecting with the divine, that's magic. And that's the thing, is that magic is in everything. We are magic. You know, we are created, in my opinion, by the stars. We are children of the divine. And I feel like if we were to just believe that something else is out there, then it will manifest itself to us. Now, everyone's path is a bit different, and many people are searching for a path. And that isn't a bad thing. Within paganism in general, they don't proselytize. It's like if you feel magic calling to you, then and you are called into that path, then you will know at a young age. And there's no need to go around proselytizing. However, because many people will be curious about why I adorn myself with makeup, with symbols, and why I use different forms of paganism as a more eclectic version, I feel like it's important for me to explain my religious path, to explain my progression. So, coming across these books, I got really into fantasy fiction. I mean, I was huge into it. I read a lot of books. I really considered them in two separate realms. And then in middle school, I came across a small shop called The Lotus in Draper, Utah. And originally, he started out with just a bamboo kind of push cart. And it was in the factory outlet mall where my mom used to shop for jeans. And I came across the idea of Asian paganism indirectly and the use of crystals and whatnot. And I enjoyed the store a lot and considered it a nice place for gifts, but never really considered what an impact that would have on my life. I went along and was continuing um, to find myself, so to speak. I was hardcore into Mormonism, into the LDS faith, because that's what my parents required in order to get acceptance from them. In order to be socially accepted as well, you needed to be a part of this group of religious zealots who were very bent on proselytizing. Now, that's part of their belief system, and my parents are good people. Don't get me wrong. It's just that I was being called to another path, my own path. At the time, I didn't know it. Even as I transitioned through various paths, I still feel that my own path is going to be the purest, and my connection to the divine. I feel like maybe it's my calling to bring spirituality back into the LGBT community, because I feel like so many people feel rejected because of their orientation, knowing it's innate, knowing it's real, knowing that it's true for them. They feel like, well, now I have to choose between God and choose between being LGBT. And because LGBT is with them every time they wake up, if they don't have a strong basis in some sort of spirituality. I've dated a lot of people who were atheists, who were agnostic, who didn't care about religion. And the thing is that although they may not know it, the actions that they will do in a setting, if they are sexual in nature, without spirituality, is inherently shortchanging yourself of many magical benefits that can come from having a intimate connection with another human being. Having a god and goddess on board that will elevate you. I tend to worship a god and goddess energy, as well as galactic energies, because I feel like we rotate around the sun on this planet. I am a sun sign. I believe I am a star, a bringer of light. This is the fire. This is the symbol of fire, and that is a triangle. A lot of times people consider it God's connection to people unified with their connection with deity being the top point. Now, I believe that I am deity, and I am in a carnate form. I'm deity incarnate, and I feel like because of the fact that I'm in the flesh, I'm susceptible, just as Jesus Christ was, to the different faults that the flesh has. And now, getting back to my story, so I came across some nonfiction books in the library, and at the same time I was starting to study this, and I had an innate connection with the divine from a young age. I prayed and I received direct answers immediately. My sister brought home some angel therapy cards from Dorian Virtue, who does a lot of angel therapy decks, and she was really into it, and I was like, well, why are you into this? She's like, well, I can't receive any sort of answers when I pray. And I was like, well, and I didn't see the point. I was like, well, you can just pray, you know. And then so she would use these tools, these tools similar to the tarot deck, to sort of connect with something spiritual, to gain guidance. A lot of people who are suffering in some way, they want that guidance, or they are taught that they need guidance from deity in order to make the correct decisions in their life. Now, I was moving along through this process and studying, and I remember a couple of critical times in my life. One was my mom got into crystals a bit too, and she came home with my sister, and they were super excited, and they had with them a citrine bracelet. And my mom's like so excited because she was suffering from a chronic fatigue at that time, and because of that suffering, she felt that that she needed to have some sort of boost, and she's like, oh, this is so cool. I put on this citrine bracelet, and it traveled like this far up my arm, and I was like, what? I was like, no. I was like, that's not even possible. I was like, here, whatever, let me try it. So I put it on my wrist, and within a matter of seconds, almost instantaneously. I was feeling a little groggy at the time. A rush of energy passed through my entire body, and I was like, whoa, this is real. And I was like, but how is it based in science? How is this, why is this working? I was fascinated. I didn't understand why. I just felt like it was working. And so that began, it was sort of a conversion almost, to know that there's other energy sources out there that could help you, and they're part of the natural world. And so I went and I finally found this book on crystal healing, and it went through all the scientific uses of crystals and how we use them in motherboards and chips, and people in gramophones. They transfer the signals through so that you can hear music. And I was like, and then I realized that that I should explore this even deeper. And that was a transitionary period for me. And then I started using the angel therapy cards, and got away from receiving that guidance as much through prayers, because I was learning divination, as it's called, or casting lots, if you believe in monotheism. It was very common. So I moved on to the next part of my life, and I would say that the next critical part was in college. I had a professor who did the Tao Te Ching of flicking the coin, and everyone pretty much there was Mormon, and that was really frowned upon. Any form of divination other than that received through a patriarch who had a calling to lay his hands on your heads and use as kind of like like deity was supposedly speaking through him. And I definitely had a spiritual experience there. But throughout all of my studies in different religions, I realized that there is spirituality, there is magic, there's metaphysical properties to all of them. And meanwhile, I was having a lot of spiritual experiences within Mormonism. But because it was not limited to just that, I felt like I should explore where my passions lied, what intrigued me. So after serving in the Mormon temple, the LDS church temple, serving a service mission while I was going to church at the MTC, the Missionary Training Center, I finally received a professor who's inspiring, and he broke me out of the idea that there was just one way, one true God, one way of looking at the world. And at that time, I was studying a ton of nonfiction books. I was already fairly transitioned away from several elements regarding sexuality that I didn't agree with. And I realized that because that was a critical component, this law of chastity, which is just a way of saying it was a sort of morality-based judgment that that particular religious organization made. Now, as I studied that throughout time, people were very inclusive of bisexual people, of people who were transsexual, which I'm male, but there are some two-spirited people who believe they have male and female energies within themselves. Not yin and yang, as it's known in but I don't want to get sidetracked within that. But yes, the people who were two-spirited were viewed and revered. The gays were reviewed and revered, and the people who were bisexual were revered because they had a unique perspective on humanity, that a unique love that was deeper, that people who were either straight or gay, and I'll use those common terms, those two types of sexualities didn't really compare to bisexuality because they loved everyone, or had the potential of loving multiple people in multiple categories. And that's the common term. I would say I'm more in line with pansexual or omnisexual, but those are that's just philosophy that doesn't have a common usage for it. And also the dictionary definition I do fit. So I felt like I should find a deity that was inclusive of my orientation, but this was later in California that I was thinking along those lines. At that time, I thought I was straight. I was gravitating away from the hardcore precepts, strictly from the standpoint that I didn't believe in their view of sexuality. Mine is more in line with a doctor's view of sexuality. Masturbation is completely acceptable as long as, and healthy. And that would be a PhD's perspective. And that's the same perspective I held, even though this religious organization was saying no to young men. This is wrong. This will make you unclean. All of these things that are just erroneous. They're the opposite of the truth. The truth that I found for myself. So I'll quantify that. So I came home, and I will continue this in part 2 about my once I had made a decision on a path.